My number two is Before Sunset.
Yes, very different.
Very different. 2004, directed by Richard Linklater, starring Ethan Hawke, Julie Delpy. Quick logline: 9 years after Jesse and Celine first met, they encounter each other again on the French leg of Jesse's book tour. All right, so from slightly classical, slightly heightened style of acting, I wanted to put something on it that was just completely naturalistic. And I feel like this movie and this series of movies, especially the first two, was kind of my entry into that style of acting. And that I,
Mm.
looked into a lot of French New Wave stuff and such. So sort of interesting that how an American film kind of became my entry into that world. But
Hmm.
I think to me, this style of acting, especially these two, is to me, this is a representation of acting where these people are playing not just a version of their screen personas, but more so a version of who they are in real life. At least that's how it feels like. And of course, I don't know who these people are in real life, but after having listened to Ethan Hawke speak quite a bit through interviews and such, even though I realize that's also a kind of performance,
Hmm.
but it feels like this is the closest it gets to who these people are. And to me, that's the brilliance of these performances. Because I mean, just imagine, right? If I put a camera on, gave you a script or a bunch of lines, which maybe you helped write as well,
Hmm.
but then said that you have to be kind of you. I think that's very difficult to do. It's
Oh yeah.
almost in a way easier to sort of heighten things up and hide behind. I shouldn't say easy, that's difficult too, but in a way, this is even more mind bendy to me that you're playing a version of yourself, if you will, but in an imagined circumstance, and you're interacting and reacting with somebody with that level of intimacy. There's
Hmm.
nothing else to hide behind. There are no other people in the movie, really. There are no other
Right.
characters. It's just the two of you. There aren't heavy plot points to hang your hat onto. It's just conversation and you. And one of the things I hear actors talk a lot about is just presence. This to me is the true test of that, where these people, as they're walking around, you're glued to the screen, just looking at every inch of muscle movement on their faces, body language, which means they have to be really, really present to react, as if it was real life. So yeah, but I don't know if you'd watched this movie before or no, and does that resonate or no?
Yeah, it definitely resonates, especially with the naturalistic acting style piece for sure. I had not seen this movie before. The first one, actually, I was introduced to on the podcast in
Yeah,
the
I
episode on
remember.
Love. So if folks want to know my opinion on the first film, go back and listen to our Love episode.
And you were
Um,
positive from what I remember.
I did. I
Yeah.
really liked it, and I like this one a lot too.
Yeah.
In a way, maybe a little bit better because it was a little more
Mhm.
interesting because it was a sequel. The fact that it was a sequel actually made it more interesting. And I have not seen the third film in the franchise. Maybe it'll come up in another podcast episode, and we can discuss it. But no, I think this film was very interesting in that it was even more so in a weird way than the other one because there wasn't the gimmick of you just meet for the first time, which is a
Mm,
kind of a plot element. That this
mm,
movie's all just them. It's a real time conversation with two actors just talking for an hour and a half.
mhm.
And if they can't pull that off, then the whole movie doesn't work. And another thing
Totally.
too that I think they do a good job with as well is this is a very written movie. Like it is a movie that the screenplay is the star in the film in a way. It's not really about how they're composing the shots or a big action scene or a big plot scene. It's all about the dialogue. And certain movies that are like that, I find that it just comes too wordy or too like I can see sort of like the pages of the script as
Yeah.
I'm looking at the film. But this just feels like a natural conversation.
It's seamless.
It's totally seamless, and that is all down
It
to the
feels
two acting performance.
improvised.
It
In fact,
does, yeah, it
they're
does.
often asked that, oh, so was there even a script? Did you just show up and just walk around and drink coffee and eat croissants? And they're like, no, this is like totally written out and
Right.
blocked.
Yeah, no, exactly. And knowing that and going into it, then it makes the work that they did in these performances even
Mhm.
that more interesting and effective because you're like, wow, like they had to go through memorizing all these lines, but making it seem like this is just a natural conversation. And so many long takes too
Mhm.
in this film. Then I'm like, wow, like they really had to make this feel natural for not just like a 2 minute scene or a 30-second kind of bit where they then get coverage. It's like, no, a lot of it's just two shot of the two of them walking. So it's even more pressure on them. But no, I felt that all the things you're saying too around realistic performances, like these do feel like the same people from the previous film, where they would be at in their lives,
That's the other thing.
how they would
Yeah.
interact with each other, and how it starts kind of awkward, and
Mm-hmm.
they want to say things but they're not, like they don't immediately say, hey, are you with anyone? That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't come up. That'd be like, that was the first thing on my mind when I was watching. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, wait a second, Ethan Hawke does have a wedding ring on, but does she? And like, I'm trying to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell that they are in their own heads as characters, not as the actors, obviously. They're trying to do that, but they don't want to just
Yeah.
kind of go right in and ask, like, oh, so I see you're married now. It's just a very natural evolution of conversation. Yes, that's the writing, but they also have to sell that as
Yeah.
actors.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, the point you made right before this, which is it's not only they're playing naturalistic versions or extensions of who they are, but it's also a continuation of somebody that they played a decade ago.
Right.
And
Right.
to kind of make that feel so seamless that you just put an old pair of jeans back on, that's just so effortless and so difficult. But yeah, I mean I've already said this on the podcast, but to me this is as exciting as an epic blockbuster movie, even though the stakes are so low. But it's those little things about how they meet, the nervousness, the awkwardness, the flirtiness, the melancholy of what could life have been if I had taken this, and you as an audience are witnessing that oh, these people are so perfect for each other in so many ways, and if only life had kind of panned out a little bit differently. But
Mm-hmm.
then you also see maybe it wouldn't have worked. And so it's almost like you're walking with them, it's almost like when you're, yeah, it's such a kind of, invitation in their lives, if you will, in such
Mm-hmm.
a deep personal way. So, and they sell it. And it's not just the lines, it's the look and the glances, the body language. Like you said before, the topic comes up about are you with somebody else? There's a lot of like growing physical touchiness
Mm-hmm.
between them, which would almost, and but it's done in a very hesitant, awkward way. It's almost like you're doing it because you want it, because it's conjuring back old memories of what this could have been. But there are also real life things that are holding you back in
Right.
doing that. Like it's not a comfortable when he happens to sit on a bench and kind of pulls her and she sits in his lap, just kind of in the first 15-20 minutes. It's a very awkward moment actually, because it's
Mm-hmm.
not how to, like, two lovers would not be awkward like that, but they're not lovers yet, at that point in time.
Right.
And you feel that in their bodies, which is kind of amazing.
Mm-hmm. No, no, definitely. I mean, it's that the fact that there is, if they had, in the first film, they were just meeting, and there's an awkwardness there, right? Of like, I don't really know
Yeah.
who this person is, but now it's like awkward because of their baggage from the
Yep.
previous meeting, and that is even, I think, harder thing to pull off, to get that across in a performance, and I think they do a great job in it.
Yeah.
You really do see that, you see that awkwardness, and of course there would be awkwardness. Like you
Yeah.
kind of get it because it is, such a, scenario that, yeah, I could kind of picture myself in their shoes, and be like, oh yeah, no, that would be totally awkward.
Yeah.
Definitely awkward. Even though there's that desire to try to make it not be, but you can't avoid it at the same time.
Yeah. I totally agree. The last thing I'd say is, I mean, you said this earlier that, yeah, the screenplay is the star, and you did sort of save the performances, but I do want to give credit to Linklater as a director too, because it would be very easy to make this movie feel very pretentious in all
Mm-hmm.
the wrong ways,
Mm-hmm.
or not capture this very tender chemistry and interaction that's happening between the two of them, or get lost in the beauty of the place as well. But there's just so much restraint in that sense of how the camera moves. You see the back of their heads, you see the little glances, like It's so effortless, and that's why it sort of feels like, oh, this must be simple because there are no big set pieces. But actually, the relationship is the set piece, and
Right.
letting that shine and come through in a beautiful place like Paris is to me, it is a feat of directing actually as well.
Oh, definitely. And, the director has to trust the actors and vice
And
versa in
that,
scenarios like this, especially where it does all hinge on their performance. And there's not a lot Linklater can do, with where he puts the camera or in the editing per se that could cover up sort of if the chemistry's not there.
true.
But the whole movie hinges on that. Which obviously I think they knew there was going to be because there was in the previous film. So, I don't think it was as risky as per se that the first one in that sense. But no, you're totally right. I mean, you have to give credit to. I mean, I know this is an episode that we're supposed to be talking just about performances, but I'll say that yeah, the director does factor into these things as well, even if it's
For
just
sure.
letting the actor
Do
have the
their thing.
room to do something that they want to do instead of the conflict that definitely can happen between directors and actors all the time. I mean, again, to go back to Hitchcock, I mean, he was notoriously very difficult with his actors
Yeah.
because he felt that they were just pawns and things for him to control as opposed to artists that are
Moo.
giving performances in something that he's putting together. Um, yeah, to him they were no different than like the birds that are on set to in the birds. There's no difference between them. So, um,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm glad you put this on the list. It was nice to see the second part in the trilogy, and curious on. And I thought they did a really good job with the second chapter, and curious on the third one.
Yeah, I guess I'll keep throwing these movies every year.
Yeah, yeah, maybe once a
So
year
kind
I
of
can.
keeping in line with the trajectory of the movie.
Yeah, yeah, that's fun. I like that idea. Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.